Very sad story. So an Ohio cops fatally struck a young lady who simply walked into a library because they decided to engage in a very dangerous high-speed chase. I want you to put up the picture full mass here. And this is why many departments, they have decided to suspend chasing individuals, creating significant danger to the public at large. Per Atlanta Black Star, in a tragic incident involving a 13-year-old child named Tamia Chappman, who was struck and killed during a police chase, the city of Cleveland has agreed to now pay $4.8 million in a settlement with the victim's family, marking the end of legal fights, investigations, etc., since the tragedy occurred in December of 2019. With millions watching and many people benefiting from this program called Indisputable, we just need 1% of the viewers to become a paid member so we can continue to bring this content to you. Now back to the show. Per CNN, the police chase ensued after an armed carjacking of a 72-year-old woman outside of a local grocery store. Chappman was walking on the sidewalk from school when the fleeing vehicle struck and killed her during the high-speed chase. Stanley Jackson, an attorney from the Cochran firm, founded by, in the namesake of Johnny Cochran, in Cleveland, that represented the Chappman family, criticized the city because the city of Cleveland engaged in a way that was negligent. Following the settlement, they did criticize the city, saying in a statement, quote, "The city of Cleveland did not follow its own policy, did not follow its own procedures, did not have common sense during the chase, nor any decency when they were involved in it." That's according to the Cochran firm. Another quote, "The $4.8 million settlement is believed to be the largest wrongful death settlement involving a pursuit in the state of Ohio." That is your lead attorney. Now, in May 2020, I'm going to give you the background. Chappman family filed a wrongful death lawsuit. Remember, it happened in 2019. So in 2020, they filed the wrongful death lawsuit to address, quote, "egregiously reckless and unnecessary pursuit that caused a tragic death," citing several violations of state law by the police. According to the lawsuit, the police acted with, quote, "conscious disregard or indifference to a known or obvious risk of harm that was unreasonable under the circumstances." So this is your body of proof here. They're saying, based on the circumstance, what the police did was engage in activity that either A, they knew it would possibly harm somebody, or they should have known it would have. The lawsuit also alleges that they violated Ohio state law and the, quote, "standard operating procedures of the Cleveland Police Department by not driving their vehicles with, quote, due regard for the safety of all persons and property on the highway." Now, this is a policy dynamic inside of their own protocol, all right? There's more. The police chase originated from the carjacking on the west side of Cleveland, according to WKYC. The pursuit concluded near Euclid and Lakefront Avenues in East Cleveland when the vehicle driven by the suspect collided with the young Tamia as she was on the sidewalk. The police chase reached speeds more than 89 miles per hour on Euclid Avenue in East Cleveland, okay? East Cleveland police reported that Tamia had been walking to a library after school. She was walking with her siblings and her cousins at the time of the incident, all of whom witnessed that tragic event right in front of them. In the aftermath, Tamia's family and their legal representative criticized the Cleveland Division of Police for choices its officers made on that fateful day. Quote, "I miss my daughter. We won't ever get her back," Cherie Chappman, Tamia's mother, said during a press conference in Cleveland on Monday. As reported by IdeaStream Public Media, lawyers argued the defendants violated Ohio law and the standard procedures by not, quote, "terminating the pursuit when the pursuit vehicle was driven at speeds far exceeding safe limits relative to road and traffic conditions, allegedly showing blatant disregard for the safety of other vehicles or pedestrians. As reported by WHIO-TV, however, there are no standard laws in place that govern police chases in Ohio, sparking debates and calls for action to establish standard police chase laws. Now, what they do have are internal policies, okay? They don't have state statutes. Each of the 29 law enforcement agencies in Montgomery County, for instance, sets its own rules when it comes to pursuit. So they set their own internal policies. Still, the Ohio Attorney General's office does provide, once again, a policy, a set of guidelines for their chase policy, but those are suggestions and they are not enforceable laws. Now, I will give you some background as to what those suggestions are able to do. Those suggestions create a framework for a legal case. So if you want to make an argument that someone had blatant disregard for human life, you would utilize the framework of policy and the Attorney General's guidelines in order to make that case. However, you could not make a case for criminal misconduct because those guidelines are not statutory. And if they were statutory, you would also have a criminal misconduct case, perhaps. There's more. Per Cleveland 19 News and the Cochran firm, the perpetrators who fled were quickly apprehended and convicted. They were held accountable for their involvement in both incidents. The driver of the stolen vehicle that struck Tamia, then 15-year-old Deshaun McNair, was sentenced in October 2021 to a prison term of 26 to 31 years with a minimum time served of 9 years. McNair pleaded guilty to involuntary manslaughter, aggravated robbery, failure to comply, possessing weapons under disability, and aggravated vehicular assault. However, the city rejected any claim of wrongdoing or policy violations in the chase, describing the decision to settle the case with Chappman's family as an extremely difficult one, according to several media reports. Quote, the city had to consider all relevant factors prior to this outcome, including a potential trial and additional cost, said spokesperson Tyler Sinclair. Quote, we want to be clear that there are no winners or losers in a case as tragic as this one. You know, I would beg to differ with you, city of Cleveland. I'm sure the parents feel like they did lose here. But the city says there are no winners or losers in a case as tragic as this one. And while it is easy to point fingers one way or another, the fact remains that if the armed carjacker never committed that crime, then Tamia would still be here with us today. They're arguing cause and effect, okay? They're arguing cause and effect. If the police had followed the guidelines as stated, she would be alive as well. How about that cause and effect? How about the cause and effect that says the officers who took an oath to protect the citizens are the ones that are responsible to the taxpayers and not the juvenile who decided to commit a criminal act? While that criminal act is wrong and unethical, immoral and illegal, that kid did not take an oath to protect and serve anybody, but the police did. How about that cause and effect? How about the cause and effect that says this? If you have a responsible pursuit based on the guidelines as presented, Tamia is alive and the individuals responsible for the carjacking are held accountable. This is not some small police division. You all have helicopters. You have eyes all over the city by way of an integrated camera network and now seemingly AI technology. It makes no sense to engage in this kind of dangerous behavior when you have so many law enforcement tools at your disposal. Mr. Mayor, you are mayor of a city yourself. You understand these law enforcement tools and how they are utilized. Did Cleveland get it wrong here, in your opinion?
They absolutely got it wrong on multiple fronts. I mean, let's first start with this officer trying to use a but for defense, or this but for this kid still in the car, then this child will be alive. But for you chasing somebody across the city at 89 miles an hour, this child will be alive. Also, the fact that you are not willing to accept. We know in criminal defense, when the defendant does not show remorse in sentencing, it usually plays out. And I think that the city refusing to accept this responsibility and the idea that you are doing 89 miles an hour on a street as domesticated as Euclid Ave is absolutely disgusting. Then on top of that, when you figured that you were doing that in a Black community, you drove all the way from the western part of the state to the Black part, where you want to do 89 miles through a city, a urban city. People should understand that Euclid is an urban city. Urban city, that is disrespectful on so many levels. And while it may not be criminal to prosecute you for the chase, there are some other laws that should make it. Reckless driving seems like one to me. You're doing 90 miles an hour in a domestic, in a residential area, seems like you should be punished for that. And I think it is absolutely correct to hold the person driving a stolen car accountable, but we should care about life more than property every time. And I feel like this is another place where Cleveland got it wrong. What I see is the swift prosecuting of this kid, giving him 20 plus years in prison, but letting this officer walk away with taxpayers, basically this family contributing to their own suffering because their tax dollars is what's paying for this cop's mistake, is absolutely disgusting to me.
That's right. And as you know, this is another way that the police defund the police. And I want everyone to think about your local library. And I promise you, your local library is inside of a neighborhood or community that is frequented by young people, because that's how we zone our local libraries. So once you put all of that in context, you get an understanding of what this police car was doing and how dangerous it was.